My name is Katima Thomas. I'm a volunteer with the programs team. I'm here on behalf of Sue and Shivani, who are not here tonight. So I'd just like to thank you all for joining this tool session to cover Clarizen. Just a brief Zoom etiquette. Please keep your mics on mute while the presentation is going on. Today, for any Q&A or questions that you have, I'm going to ask that you hold on to those questions until the Q&A session at 6:50 this afternoon. I will be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to leave your questions there as well. And I will give those questions to Adam at the end of the presentation. I want to thank I'd like to thank Think Consulting for hosting our event this afternoon. And thank you for all PMIM members as well as guests who are joining this evening. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Adam.
Thanks, Katima. Let me start sharing here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so hello and welcome to this SoFlow PMI presentation on another project management tool. The agenda that we have for today is going to include introduction of myself. We will go through a product overview, just the kind of high level basics. The product overview, we will see different views in the home and navigation views. We'll see project management views, team and collaboration views, and finally some reports and dashboarding views. We will go through some success stories that some of the clients have had with this PM tool, and then we'll go through a conclusion, and as Katima said, we'll wait for some questions at the end there. So again, my name's Adam Poole. I started out in project management back in 2010 with Accenture. I spent a little bit over 6 years with them in various roles, including a business analyst role, OpEx manager role, operations manager, and project management. I supported several Fortune 500 companies at this time with their process measurement, management, and improvement initiatives. After spending 6 years with Accenture, I moved over to a company called GANTT Consulting, where I spent a little bit over 2 years in a role of project manager. Part of that time was program manager, and even part of that time was a scrum master. I supported one of the largest financial institutions at that time with their production oversight and issue resolution. In one of their largest to date risk and compliance programs for anti-money laundering and know your customer routines. After that, I moved over to a company called Blackbaud. They are a software company that builds and manages software for nonprofit organizations. I spent a little bit over 2 years with them as well as a program manager for their cybersecurity business unit. And for the last 6 months, I've been here with Think as a management consultant, and I have been working on a Salesforce integration about 50% of the time, and done some executive advisory work for about 50% of that time. So let's move on to talk about what we're really here for today, and that's a project management tool. So what do I look for in a project management tool? What I consider is org size, project management challenges that the organization currently has, how easy the solution is to use, and how scalable it is. Of course, there's many things to consider beyond these four, but these are the four that I usually start with. Those first two, pretty much every org is going to have to figure out themselves. But the second 2 points match up with we'll see what those match up with the PM tools that we'll talk about today. All right, so Clarizen. Today we're going to talk about Clarizen and see what the Clarizen can provide as far as a PPM tool. So what I've found is that Clarizen is adaptive, collaborative, and effective. It's highly configurable and easy to use. It supports most of the user work styles that you'll see out there. It's easy to communicate both internally and externally, so there's good collaboration there. And if you use it the right way, I would say it provides full visibility into the organization so they can make better decisions from the bottom level all the way up to the top. One of the things that you'll see on here is Clarizen Bot. It was really interesting to see how this thing worked, but pretty much it's automated alerts that alerts when you're off track on projects or have any overdue work. But it's also something that you can communicate back with. So like if you were to say at Clarizen, give me a status report on project blank, it would actually present that status report to you. Some other features that are on that we've pretty much put a scorecard together here for. You'll see here 14 features that are involved in project management. So you can see I've split these into sections. One is project management, having different features here, and another that I haven't really touched on, but they also have professional services automation as well. So there's 2 items down there that will be scored as well. So you can see here, like resource management, there's 25 scores that came in, and you had an average score of 7.9. So I'll let you take a look at this for a couple of seconds here just to kind of ingest what the different features are, and then we can move on. All right, so at a high level, what does the Clarizen tool look like? So this is the home page. Again, this is completely customizable to fit your working style. You can also take any of these different, and I call them widgets. I think Clarizen calls them something different, but you can take them down and drill down into every single level of that information, of that data. And speaking of ease of use, there's actually 2 different ways that you can get to the homepage. The more formal way is to go through the navigation and click on the home page, which will take you there. I'll show that on the next slide. And then the easier way is if you click up on the Clarizen icon in the top left, it'll do the same thing. It'll take you back to your home page. Going forward to the navigation page, if you are on your home page or really any page that you're on, there's a blue bar that's over on the left side of the page. When you click on that, it'll bring up this navigation pane. And again, you can go to the first there, that's the home page, or you can go to anything else that you see in there. With that being said, if you're new to Clarizen and absolutely nothing is set up for you, except for the out-of-box items, which they are great, by the way, in my opinion, you'll want to look around and get familiar with the different objects that you can go to. After you do that, though, obviously the next place to start within Clarizen is to set up a project. This view right here is the scheduling view. This is the view that I usually focus on when I'm looking at a specific project. What you see here is a project that has been added, but there's no milestones or tasks that are added to the project yet, so it's pretty empty. This view will also show you the necessary project details at the very top, which are customizable to what details you want to see. The next section down will be a roadmap. So as you start to build out the project plan, a roadmap will start to be developed there. And there will be different cues to show you where you actually stand within that, that project. And then the last section down there, they call it work plan, I call it project plan, but this will show you where you can set up your project plan. It's again fully customizable on what kind of column headers you want here. I usually set it up with starting from left to right, what the state is of the project, what the status of the project is, conflicts, if the projects or the task or whatever it might be is on the critical path. Is it executable? The name of the item, the description of the item, if you want to put that in there, I usually do. How much work or effort that's going to take, the duration that it's going to take, so a start date, due date, and if there's anything that is dependent on. So I think they call it predecessors in here, but you can see the little linkage there. And then percent complete, and then the actual effort that it took. So once you have finished it, you know, did it take the original effort that you thought it was going to take, or did it take more or less? And then the last two columns are the owner of that specific milestone, task, or project, and then the resources that are going to be used for that milestone or task. Again, this is where I start. I might add some more items later, but this again is a good start. Again, this is another look at the scheduling view. This is what it would look like after a project had been scoped and prior to the project going active. Hitting back at the ease of use, I'd like to point out that when you are creating milestones on here, and Clarizen has tons of different things that you'll learn throughout the process, but one of the things that I saw, you know, was a small help in time, but it was definitely something, you know, if anybody likes to use keyboard shortcuts, it's definitely something that'll help. So the one here is if you are on a milestone or a task, all you have to do to save a item and move on to the next item is hit Shift plus Enter at the same time. Let's see, another thing on here is when you add a dependency, you'll see that the link image right to the right of due date there, you'll see that there's a link that's added there. Another thing that you'll see on this page is a blue triangle. So you'll see in some of these fields, there's a blue triangle there. That shows up to show that you have actually manually updated that field. So Clarizen automatically sets things to 40-hour weeks, 8-hour days. So if you were to put in here that your duration for something is a day, then it's going to show 8 hours of work. Or if you were to show that it's going to be a week duration, then it's going to show that it's 40 hours of work. So obviously, most of the time when you put that there's a day duration on something, it's typically not a full day of work. It could be, but you would want to go in there and change that work item or that effort to how many hours out of that day or how many hours out of that week it's going to take. And when you do that, it'll show up as a blue triangle in the top right corner. The last thing that you will do prior to activating the project is to add placeholder resources. So they do have the option, and this doesn't take up any subscriptions that you might have, but you can add in there a placeholder option. Like you'll see over on the right side where it says resources, it says $PM. Well, that's a project manager resource. So as you're setting up your initial project, it's good to add these resources in here, even if you don't know who's going to be the resource that's responsible for that, so that it's kind of like a placeholder, because when you come back to it, you can actually just put that you want to change everything on this project from $PM to actually somebody's name. Instead of going in there to each individual item, it'll change all of them for you. I know that I said resources was the last item, but I'd also like to talk about templates. Um, once the work plan has been created, if it's something that you think will be similar to any future projects that you have, you'll actually want to create a template of what you've set up here. That way, when you're ready to set up a new project, you can just go in there to new project, click on the template that you want to add, and it'll bring everything up here the way it shows right now. And then you can go in there and customize the things that you need to. But it's an easy way to save a lot of time, especially if, you know, again, you think it's going to be something that you do in the future. But it also keep things familiar and consistent from project to project. Once you have everything updated and the resources are ready to go, the last step would be to activate the project. This is the last page that I have on the schedule view. So this kind of shows you what a project would look like when it's activated. So you'll see there's resources in here now. There is a lot more color to it. You can see within state, status, roadmap, and some more of the items in here, there's a color change. Most of these are on track, so you can see that most of them are green here now. But you know, again, this is what it does when you change over to an active status. One other thing that I'd like to point out on the roadmap up here is these diamonds. You can also see that when you complete a milestone, which is represented by the diamonds there, that they will fill completely up. The third diamond in that roadmap, you'll see is not completely filled because all the tasks aren't completely done in that milestone. When you're at this spot, you will, well, actually, as soon as you activate the project, what you'll want to do is also take a baseline of that project. It's a pretty cool feature that they have within Clarizen. And what it does is it takes a snapshot of what you scoped out in the beginning. So that way you can see if there's any scope creep or, you know, whatever, or if there's, you know, some time that's been saved. We will actually talk about this a little bit more on the next slide. But before we move to that next slide, let's talk about one more thing. One of the most important things in project management is how to add a request, bug, or issue. So I did add another column in here. It's, let's see, 3 columns back from the name. So 2, 3, it's the third column back. Nope, it's the second column back. Before name, you'll see a new column there that is where you would add an issue or risk or bug or request. There's actually 2 ways to do this. One of them you can see there that the add related in blue, it's highlighted in blue there. You can click on that, you click on cases right below that, and then you'll add, you know, whatever it might be there, a risk or an issue. The other way is when you have this column up, if you want to just go down, and you can see it on the screen there, there's a plus sign in that column as well when you hover over it, and you can actually click that to add an issue, risk, request, or bug as well. Now let's talk about baselining. This, again, is an awesome feature. It'll help you to see the delta no matter where you are in the project, what has changed between the start date, the due date, the work effort, and also what those variances are. So as you can see on this screen, you'll have 3 columns for each one of those things. So the start date, you'll have the baseline start date. So the start date is the current start date. The baseline start date is what you started with, and then a baseline start date variance. So if anything's changed, how has it changed? So again, project is now set up, it's activated, template is created, and the baseline is set. So what other views do we have available to us? Let's talk about that a little bit. So the next one that we talk about is the Gantt chart view. It's not something that I typically use that often anymore. I really like the roadmap view a little bit better. But the good thing about the Gantt chart view is it can also show you what kind of connections there are between the different tasks. So you can see in the Gantt chart view, there's arrows that are leading from one task down to another, or from one milestone down to another. Those are the predecessors or the dependents that you connected up in the project plan. They'll show in this view. So it's a pretty neat view to have. It's just not one that I typically use anymore. But I have had clients in the past that have specifically asked for it to be presented in this view. So it's great that Clarizen does offer this for you. Another view that they have is the calendar view, and depending on how you set the calendar view up, obviously it can get a little complex. But I think the best view that I would say they have in Clarizen for the calendar would be the project task view. That's the one that's up there in the top left corner. That one's done by task, which are typically, a shorter item to do. The one in the middle is a project view. I would never suggest that one, but it does show you that it does have that capability of setting it up pretty much any way that you want to, whether it's by task, project, or even simplifying it down to as simple as project due date. So that project due date one's pretty nice, especially at like a program level, or if you have like several projects that are under your responsibility. Then you can set your calendar up that way. Again, not something that I typically use that often, but again, it's great that Clarizen has that availability to set this up, and it's good for your client to see. This view is the task view. It's a one-stop place to see the work that you have to do. There's also the sidecar, and this sidecar is actually pretty much on any view that you look at, but the sidecar can be reduced to the right side, or pulled out from the right side, and it'll show you anything that's related to the specific task or project. Whatever you're highlighting at that point in time, it'll show you what's related to that. The task that shows here are only your active task. You can change that by filtering it different ways, but the one that shows on your, well, I've got this one set up to show my active tasks. So this one will show all active tasks, but you can set it up anyway. Again, it's it conforms to pretty much any style that you want. The fields that you will update on this view is % complete, actual effort, and remaining effort. And when you're in this task, it just helps the PM understand like if anything is running behind, or if anything's taking more effort than it was supposed to take, or hey, you know what, we said 8 hours, it's only going to take 2 hours. You can put that in there, and you can finish something early. The last great thing about this view is that you can communicate anything about any task to anyone on your team. So you can use the discussions area to highlight a task and send a message out to the team, to make sure that everybody's on the same board, or anybody that has any questions or comments, or if it's something that you have a issue with that you need somebody's help with, they can reach back out to you. So again, it really helps out with the collaboration piece in Clarizen, because pretty much throughout the whole solution, there is a way to collaborate with internally within your team or externally to the client. This view is the timesheet. It's another view for the resources that can quickly show past due work and work due this week. If you ever have any questions about the view and what it's showing you, you can always go up to the filter button or the filter icon, hover over it, and it'll actually show you, like in this one, it says state is active, show future work items. So you can see clearly there, like what this view is actually showing you. And that's the same, in any of the views that have that filter button up there. Time will not show up. So in this view, you have the ability to go in there and put the time in, obviously, but it won't show up in pending time until you actually submit it. And that shows as a check mark being black with the transparent background. When you set up Clarizen, you can set to automatically approve by the manager or to have the manager actually physically approve it himself. Once it is approved, that check mark will change from that black, white, transparent background to a white check mark with a green background. And then it'll actually show the effort that's been put into that specific task. So at this point, we've talked a lot about personal ways to get Clarizen to work for you, the ease of use and the scalability of the tool. Let's also look at some ways that we can collaborate with the tool. So team view, it'll give you a look into the entire team, what tasks they have, what's coming due, expected progress, and so on. You can also sort this pretty much any way that you want to. So you can sort it by start date or due date. You can sort it by % complete. You can sort it by the status of each task. So it's a good view, especially if you're a project manager that has a lot of people working on the project. It's a good view to see that. Another view is the resource load view. So this is a good view to have when you're looking across the organization to see if there's any resources available to help out on a project. For really any reason, you're starting the project and you need resources, or you're working on a project, one of your members comes to you and says, hey, I have this task, it's due tomorrow, I'm not going to get to it, or it's not going to be finished by tomorrow, whatever it might be. You can go into this resource load view and see who has the time available to do it. And then you can just simply take that task and scroll it down to the person, and it'll automatically move it to their name. I think I said this earlier, but again, Clarizen sets a standard a week to 40 hours and a standard day to 8 hours per day. So that's what I have showing up here. You can change that to anything that you want to. I had a manager at one point in time that believed, well, he had read a study that most people work about 6 hours a day out of an 8-hour day. So he used to change a lot of his numbers to 6 hours. Speaking of changing numbers, you can actually change these numbers by %, hours, FTE, or person days. Let's see, the employee group. You'll go to employee group, employee name or placeholder type, project or projects. and then the employee is working on the task employee is allocated to, and you can change everything there. All right, so with Clarizen, you can actually, again, dive into all these fields. If you highlight a column in the project, you can click the gear and choose show the work plan, and it'll actually bring up in a split screen the bottom half, the project plan, and then the top half, this resource load view. So it's pretty intuitive in that respect as well, because it makes it easy where you don't have to switch back and forth between screens. When you go and try to dive into something, it'll show you both screens on your same screen. The shareable view. So another way to collaborate, and I talked about this earlier a little bit, is external collaboration with clients or anyone that's outside the organization. You can choose to share this as a full view, as a roadmap view, or a Gantt view. As I said earlier, you can see, because it's green over here, you can see that this project's active. It does get more color to it, and our clients or anybody outside the organization can see, what's going on with the project, but they can see what you want them to. So the good thing about the shareable view as well is that you configure this view to show anybody outside the organization what you want them to see. So if you don't want them to see a start date, then you don't have to put that in here. If you don't want them to see how much effort something's taken, you don't have to put that in here. You don't have to put any kind of risk or dependencies or anything like that in there. It's really customizable to what you want them to see. All right, so reports and dashboards. So the first thing that you're going to want to do to get the visuals that you want is go and set up any report that you can think of. Reports, again, are completely customizable based on the data models, which you can find that in Clarizen documents. So when setting up the report, you'll tell it, the report name, what's on the report, how to filter that report, and what you want it to highlight. So in this one, I think it was total active projects. And if you would like it to be a chart, a stacked bar chart, I mean, there's a lot of different options with the reports. I'm only showing a couple here, but you got pie charts, you got scatter charts. I mean, pretty much anything that you can want in a simple tool like this, you can actually go and set it up that way. Again, reports need to be done before dashboards, but once you have those reports set up, the dashboards are extremely easy to set up. So when you actually set up the reports with the dashboards, you can set these up and customize them quite a few different ways. I mean, they do have some standards here. So like you can have one column where there's a picture that goes from one side of the screen to the other, or a graph that goes from one side of the screen to the other. You can have two columns where it's split 50-50 or 2/3 by 1/3. Or you can do something like this where it's three columns and you can have three even columns, or you can have three columns like this where it's a third on one side, a third on the other side, and then, well, no, sorry, a fourth on one side, a fourth on the other side, but halfway in the middle. And when you are setting up the reports, I forgot to talk about this, so going back a screen, but this first report that you can see here, the current project report, they do allow you to set up some like high level items at the top. You can set up 1, 2, or 3. And like this one, I set it up to where it just shows me what the total active are, rather than the full amount. So it shows total active is 9. So when I go over to a dashboard, I can actually put that in this right or left column where I can actually show, just a high level of information in a small widget that's on the side. All right, so again, dashboards, they're set up by the reports that you set up. So however fancy you can get with the reports, is pretty much how fancy you can get with the dashboards. All right, let's see here. So this, there's a lot of out of the box integrations that Clarizen has. This shows 12 of them. There's still more than this as far as out of box integrations, but they also allow integrations with other applications with the use of APIs as well. So they do have that option. But pretty much the list that comes out of the box is pretty cool. I mean, they've got a lot of integrations here, and it's pretty easy to set up. All right, so let's move into the success stories. So that's done with the product overview. Again, it was very high level, but hopefully you saw some good information in there, and we're able to enjoy the views that we were able to share with you. For success stories, here's some great quotes that I actually picked up from the clients that have adopted Clarizen as their PPM solution. And I am going to take a drink of water, so I'll let you read through some of these as I do that. Again, a lot of these things hint at the ease of use and scalability of the tool. And a lot of the stories that I'm seeing from Clarizen and actually several clients that I've worked for in the past is, they don't have one standard tool, they don't have one standard process. Do you have a tool that allows us to standardize it? And is it something that's easy to use to where our employees are going to adopt it? All right, so the first success story that we have here is from Siemens Energy. The challenge was they've got a well-established company with complex client operations that are spread across the globe. They had disjointed and siloed teams. They had lengthy and laborious processes to get a project status update. So no easy reporting on where projects stood. And they had a slow response speed to customer requesting inquiries. The solution was to standardize all client operations into a single collaborative work management system. They were calling that initiative 1PM, and it was going to be enterprise-wide. The goals were to consolidate all tools and processes into one, similar to what I just said on the previous slide. They wanted to increase their productivity, increase their collaboration, increase their visibility. So as we talked about in the product overview slides, I mean, it sounds like a lot of stuff that Clarizen has the ability to do. The results from this were they were better, more thorough reports provided in real time, increased revenue by completing more client projects each year, consolidated an average of 5 systems per department, increase in customer satisfaction, and 36,000 hours of work saved annually. So pretty good success story for Siemens, who chose Clarizen as their kind of one-stop shop. So one solution, one process, and went enterprise wide with it. The next one that we have here is M Squared. Their challenge was similar, but a little bit different. So it's fast growing business. So transformation and agility were crucial to them. They had multidisciplinary teams that were spread across multiple locations in the UK, Europe, and the United States. And their teams were using different systems and processes. So very similar to the story above, where they were using different systems and processes, but not such a dinosaur as Siemens, for lack of better words. So their solution was agile project management solution that could unify teams and drive efficiencies. Project and portfolio management solution to give program managers the capability to manage large and complex projects. Project and program managers could quickly generate and share reports on project status and portfolio health. Wider portfolio level visibility that would allow for real-time staffing adjustments and other critical business decisions. So that's one of the things that we talked about up front, is that if you use Clarizen the right way, it will allow you to make those critical business decisions that you might not be able to with another solution, or that you might not be able to with if you have siloed teams and several solutions and several processes to get there. So the results for M Squared was they selected Clarizen 1 as their PPM system and Clarizen Go as their agile solution. By integrating Clarizen Go with Clarizen 1, the company is enabling its teams to more efficiently execute and work in the way that they were meant to. Meanwhile, by connecting the two Clarizen products, the company is also providing its project managers with the insights and reporting capability needed to scale business operations in a dependable and measured way. So good success there. Let's see here. What started as a plan to unite engineering teams with a task management system now includes greater transparency across manufacturing lines, customer service, installations, higher management, coordination tasks, recruiting drives, marketing events, or marketing and events management. So I would say that's a pretty good success story from them as well. They were able to go from something that was very confusing and not solely held throughout the company to something that was, in this case, two solutions, because they needed the agile solution from Clarizen Go as well, but two solutions and processes to help their teams work together more effectively. The last one that we had here is a financial services institution, anonymous. So the challenge is in 2018, the company launched a national expansion of retail banking services. To support this expanding scope of operations and digital transformation, while still managing costs and risk, the company needed to restructure their processes and deploy a new project and portfolio management system. Legacy PPM systems were on-prem, and the legacy PPM systems were not used at a enterprise level. So the solution, sorry about that. The solution for this was Clarizen was chosen as the PPM system out of a group of 8 different systems that they researched. And they chose it because it's adaptable structure, extensive collaboration tools, friendly user interface, lower cost of ownership, and superior customer service. That last point's very important. I have seen it myself, and I've heard a lot of good things from other people that the customer service, our customer support team from Clarizen is top notch. They're pretty quick to respond to calls for a need, and really haven't heard too many complaints from that. So as a result, for this financial services institution, Clarizen One is now their main focal point to drive their digital transformation. This new system is helping the company enterprise-wide to better understand projects from vision to execution, and to provide seamless collaboration and flexibility, or in flexible delivery for projects of any size, complexity, or execution methodology. So I would say another good success story here from this financial services institution. But you can go on to Clarizen's website. There's tons of other ones out there where they have success stories of these different companies that have used Clarizen effectively. So if you're interested, go out there and read a few of them. Let's move on to the last part of it, conclusions and questions. So I wanted to add this slide here. When you're talking about the pros, we've talked about most of those throughout the process. Especially saw some of those in the customer success stories. But let's talk about some of the cons. These things have been consolidated from a group of 53 people that have used Clarizen over the last 10 years. So it doesn't provide a way to manage meetings. Some of the automated features are too automated and not always desirable. Clarizen can be pretty slow to update small changes to project plans. And I've seen a little bit of latency there. So I can affirm to that as well. For our purposes, Clarizen had too much going on. We did not use status or chat features. It should try to focus on doing some things very well instead of being an all-in-one offering. So, and that's one of those things that you look at for any system. You want to make sure that it fits your business. Some businesses are an all-in-one type of company. Some just want a few features because they have error on, let's say, time management tool, or they've got their own management tool. There's different reasons that you would go with different solutions, but Clarizen seems to be one of those that if you need a project management tool as one solution, then it has most of the stuff there for you. The Gantt charts are combining all projects our company is working on to view at an overall level could be better. I technically have not used a Gantt chart to combine all the projects that my company has done in the past. Usually I use the Gantt charts at a project level. So I could imagine if you're putting a lot of projects into a Gantt chart, it would be a little extreme. And then the last one that we have here is better, easier connectivity with other third-party software that we use on a day-to-day basis would be helpful. So I had mentioned the integrations earlier. I had also mentioned that they do have the capability of using APIs for something that's not there. This information, the pros and cons, date back to 10 years of information. So this might be something that they've updated. But again, before you purchase any tool, you'd want to make sure that if you are using other solutions that are going to be combining with Clarizen, you'd want to make sure that those are able to be set up easily. Something that's not going to take a lot of man hours to do. All right, and the last thing that we have here is the next PM Underground. That's going to be this coming up Wednesday. So next Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. I would recommend checking it out if you haven't already. If you have checked it out in the past, I'm sure that you'll be coming back as well. So with that being said, I think we are ready for questions.
Thank you, Adam, so much for the great presentation. I don't have any questions in the chat, so I'm going to open up the floor to those on the call. If you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask Adam your question.
Hi, this is Marilyn.
Hey, Marilyn.
Adam, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was great. Does Clarizen have any program or portfolio management capabilities?
Program portfolio management. Yeah, I would say for Clarizen, there is the ability for both of those. It just depends on how in depth you want to go with it. Do you have an example maybe?
And it was part of the cons. That's why I'm asking that it's not easy to tie different projects together. So maybe a view of related projects.
Yeah, I mean, so there's different ways that you can view the related projects within Clarizen. I mean, you can view it on a project level, you can view it as a portfolio level. I mean, you can view it that way as well. You can sit there and see the different projects and configure it to show what you want to on there. Like if you just want to see a high level of all the projects, the status, you know, any open tasks that are out there, you can look at it in that view. If you want to, yeah, if you want to see it in a view as just the task level, what's coming up, you know, due over the next week, you can see it in that view as well. So yeah, it's very intuitive in that point where, you know, you can pretty much make it how you want it to be. And you can see it in different views, like we were talking about in part of the product overview. Like you can see it in the calendar view if you wanted to. I had mentioned at that point, like you wouldn't want to look at all your projects there, but if you wanted to see like project due dates or, you know, project milestone dates, things like that, you could put that into the calendar.
Yeah, as a portfolio manager, I would want to see all the projects listed under a certain portfolio. But anyway, thank you for answering that. I have a second question, and I had chatted, I'm sorry, I chatted you directly. Is there a way that you can classify by tasks, whether a task is CapEx or OpEx for finance reporting purposes?
There is, I have not done that. I know that there is, oh, what do they call it? Like I said, I've not done it personally, but I know like you can split it up between the different groups so that you can see which task belongs in what area.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks you for the great question. Does anyone else have a question for Adam? No one? Okay, if no one has, oh, okay. Who's?
Yeah, hi, this is Steve Sharkey. I have one quick question, and I don't know if you can answer this. From a cost perspective, as a smaller company versus a larger company, does Clarizen, do they scale their pricing from that perspective, or is it more geared towards a price for larger organizations?
I can definitely look into that information for you. I know when I used Clarizen, it was for a more of an enterprise-wide with Blackbaud. So I think we had a couple thousand people that were actually on the product. So I think it was a little bit different than what it would be with a smaller organization. But I can definitely look into that and try to get an answer for you.
Yeah, that would be good. I appreciate it. We're actually going through a PPM tool evaluation right now. And this popped up to see whether to put them in our mix or not.
Okay, yeah, Steve, definitely. How many people do you have in your organization?
Well, organization-wise, we have about 375 employees. But actual folks who would use it, I would say probably around 25 to 30.
Okay.
Project managers, program managers. Obviously, the leadership would want it for the dashboards, right? That we would set up dashboards for them.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, they have different levels of cost depending on what you're actually going to be doing in the tool.
Okay,
But yeah, I'll check on that for you too.
I'd appreciate that. Do you know how to get in touch with me or send me something, or you want me to send you my contact? Or did you have yours? I can connect with you offline.
Yeah, let me Kedema, is there a way to, do you have the call list on here? Is there a way to get that information?
Have the call list on here, but I'm gonna take down Steve's name and I'll pass it on to Sue and see what I can do to get him connected with you.
Okay, sounds perfect.
Anyone else on the call that'd like to have a question or comment for Adam before we close out? Okay, well, thanks again for everyone who joined the call tonight. Thank you again, Adam and Laura for Think Consulting for the great presentation. Before we go, just some quick upcoming events. We do have another virtual PM tool session called Which Tool Should I Use on October 14th. We also don't forget about the virtual PMC 2021 event coming up on November 4th. Labeled Level Up, New World, New Challenges, New Solutions, and there's also going to be more events to come. I hope everyone has a wonderful night. Please continue to stay safe and stay blessed.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.